Without further ado, our head football coach, Brad Laird, as we saw a couple of weeks ago, the Demons will be playing in Shreveport in 2022 against Grambling. Just a chance for you guys to catch up with Coach. And, Coach, I know it's been a different kind of couple of months for you, and it's been a while since you've seen some of these men and women. So you just want to have an opening statement, then we'll open it up to questions.
Yeah, first, really appreciate being able to see you. That's one thing I think that's the hardest thing as we go through what we've been through is just the face-to-face. We've really learned a lot during this process, but, just the interaction that we have with people, that we have with the media, that we have with our team, that we have with the people on campus. That's the thing when you look back, I think we all learn a lot as individuals and as football team, as coaches, but the one thing that we do miss is that one-on-one. Appreciate everything that y'all do. And because sports is all of our lives and football is mine. But, we get to reflect back on, our family. And, so I think the best thing that I see in this is, the opportunity to see people that we don't get to see a lot during this time. Our coaches normally be on the road recruiting, not being home with their family. So I like to look at the positive of it. We're going through some tough times, but there's a lot of positives we can take. This being one, I didn't know what Zoom was on March 13th. And I say March 13th because that's, I believe it was a Friday, if I'm not mistaken, when we were told that our players and our students were going to go home. And I go back to that Thursday, March 12th. I'll never forget it. I walked. It's kind of when this kind of got going a little bit more as far as the coronavirus, and we were having our 8th practice on March 12th on a Thursday, and we had our team meeting. We went to special teams meeting, and we broke to position meetings. And man, I didn't feel right. I didn't feel right. There was a gut feeling of mine, and we were all go for practice, and there was nobody that was holding us back. And I'll never forget, and the coaches can play and players can tell you, I walked in the position meetings. I said, let's go to the team meeting. And I canceled practice. There was just so much up in the air at that time that I didn't know, we didn't know. And then on that Friday the 13th, saying, our students and student athletes were going to be having to get off campus. And that's the thing that you look, and it's probably been the toughest, is I hadn't been able to look them in the eye since March 13th. That's what's tough. The football, that's going to take care of itself. The X's and O's, we had 7 spring practices, but being able to look at them and look them in the eye, that's what's been tough. And knowing the transition that they've had to go through as the head coach, that's one thing. But those 18 to 22-year-olds, that's where our heart goes and feel for them each and every day. But I tell you what, they have been unbelievable. They've been outstanding through this process. You couldn't ask for a better group of guys to take this head on, handle their business in the classroom. We had finals last week and finished up, and our guys, man, they kicked it out. They did a great job. Couldn't be more excited for them. And the toughest part is, hey, being able to give them a date and say, okay, this is the date that we're coming back, because you know what? Nobody knows. And if somebody's going to sit here and say they do know, let me know who they are, because I want to get them on the phone. I want to talk to them, because, we can all speculate. And as we speculate different dates and when we're going to come back, or if we're going to come back, that is all it is speculation. And so, kind of what we did since March 13th, just kind of catch up what Northwestern State football did. Everybody's different and how they handled the coronavirus. But we kind of tried to keep as much of a schedule as we could with our guys off campus. Every Monday we had academic. I would start with a staff meeting every Monday. And then Monday was always an academic day for us. And so we would be on academic meetings with Miss Caitlin and her staff. I was on about everyone on Monday with our players just to see how they're doing from an academic standpoint. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we had position meetings. And those were the days that I would have meetings as an offense and defensive staff. I would not have a staff meeting that particular day. I met with the offense, and then an hour later met with the defense. And then we did that again on Thursday as far as a staff meeting. I tried to change it up a little bit. And instead of just doing football and just doing academics, I had some speakers that I had lined up that spoke to the team. Nick Foles, one that had the opportunity to speak to our quarterbacks. And, what my thought process in that was, we're all going through this unprecedented time. And how are other individuals handling this situation, because we can all learn from them. I mean, Nick Foles is a quarterback that won a Super Bowl, that's going through the process of learning a new offense as he goes to a new team. So he was able to give our quarterbacks, perspective on how to how to learn the system, how to work virtually. Damon West, a speaker that we had come in last summer that played quarterback at North Texas, that goes around speaking to different universities and different groups, had life in prison and got out in 7+ years. And his testimony is unbelievable. So I had him speak to the team, trying to have different people come and speak to our guys and give them inspiration during this time as they all go back. And we had coaches' families that had the coronavirus, and, we had players that had family members. So what they were going through was a very tough time, and we wanted to give them inspiration along the way. So, that was, I guess, in a quick nutshell, kind of our schedule that we went by to keep our players engaged, to be able to see them face to face. Like I said, I never heard of Zoom or WebEx or any of that until that March 13th. And we're going to be able to take this moving forward. That's the thing that we're going to be able to learn. We're going to be able to take this virtual learning that we're doing and communication and expand that. We've, from a recruiting standpoint, we missed out on junior day. Recruiting is such an important time, and all of us, all universities missed out on that. So, as we go through right now, we're FaceTiming all of our recruits. The recruiting coach for that particular area, the position coach, the coordinator, and myself, we get on a FaceTime because I want to see them face to face. It's one thing to talk to them on the phone. It's one thing to text them. But I love to see guys. I love to see their facial expressions, just like I love to see our guys. So, we've been able to do that. We're doing that as we speak, and we'll continue to do that moving forward until this thing opens up.
All right, if you got a question for Coach Laird, just unmute yourself and ask away.
I got one.
Yes, sir.
Coach, just kind of an overall perspective of the recruiting in North Louisiana, Northwest Louisiana particularly. I know you can't speak to individual recruits, but just as a group, how do you see it lining up this year as far as the number of recruits and the quality of recruits in this area?
Yeah, I think, I can't say names. We got one coming up at 2:30 in that area that very excited about and being able to talk to those coaches in that area. But I think what you see is guys that fit at Northwestern State, both on and off the field. The 1 hour radius, which I've always talked about. You look at guys in that area that fit the needs that we have coming up in the 2021 class at specific positions. I think it works out great as you look along that I-20 corridor and I-49 down to us. Really excited about the guys in that area. And Jimmy, I appreciate that question, because it's like I told one while ago. I'm not going to talk X's and O's with you. What do you bring to this program off the field that's going to make us national championship? That's what we're looking at when we look at these guys. It's one thing to look at huddle, one thing to look at a game tape, but to be able to see them face to face and see them in person. And I think, Jimmy, that's the advantage that we've had being an hour and less from that area, the Shreveport-Bossier area, that, we've seen these guys probably more so than we have some other in the state of Louisiana and East Texas because of the location. And so it really helps us, I think, moving forward, especially more so now than ever because of not being able to have them on campus for junior day, not knowing if we're going to be able to have them on campus this summer, or what's going to happen as far as football is concerned.
Coach, I know you mentioned Nick Foles, and so coming to talk to the quarterback crew. But of course, with the loss of Shelton, how's the quarterback room looking now? Are you able to speak on it?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'd love to. That's a position that's dear to my heart. And, 7 practices is better than 8, the way I looked at spring practice. And when we went into the situation, we talked to the quarterbacks. We didn't know if a decision was going to be made after 15 practices. That was going to dictate itself. Has a decision been made after 7? No. The thing that I like about all 3 is they bring different things to the table, and from experience to no experience at all. But all 3 of the guys that are competing for that spot are guys that are great leaders. And I think that's the thing, first and foremost, when you look at that position, everybody gravitates to them. I did see that through 7 practices. It's one thing to see it in a conditioning drill in the end of January, but it's one thing to see it on the field when the bullets are flying. And, from a quarterback myself, I was able to see that they were able to handle and bring the team together when they were on the field. So, it's going to be exciting to see. They got big shoes to fill. There's no doubt, and they know that. But I think ultimately we're looking at what's best for this football team moving forward to be the best football team that we can be, and that quarterback's going to be a big position with that.
Coach, before COVID-19 broke out and everything was canceled, just tell me what the morality of the team was like coming off of the season that you guys had.
It was good. It was good. It was a tough season. There's no doubt. And we didn't shy away from talking about it from coaches and players, because the first thing you got to do is you got to look in the mirror. And that started with me. And so as we move forward in the things that we had to do to get better, and that I had to get better as far as from a head coach perspective, we moved forward, and our guys had a great attitude as far as, because you got to understand, as you look at these young men, we lost a strength coach and that went to Texas Tech as an assistant. And, we hired one right before COVID-19 hit. And so our guys hadn't seen him besides on Zoom or WebEx, So, our guys and our coaches, we really got to spend a lot more time together than we probably normally would, because not having a strength coach, that fell on us quite a bit more. So we were able to see them January through, really January and February, and some of those times that we really wouldn't have seen them because of the strength staff. So I think that helped us moving forward to find out, guys during that time who's going to work when it gets tough. And that led to us in 7 practices being able to know who those guys were.
Hey, Coach, long time no see. I hope you're doing well. First off, you sort of touched on it a little bit, talking about no one really knowing when they're going to come back. Looking at Louisiana Tech, for example, it seems like they might be able to return to campus sort of late July. So that gives them the ability to sort of create a timetable. Hey, how much practice are we going to get? How much practice do you think your team needs before they can safely see game action? Because it's something that you can't really simulate that sort of stuff on your own. How much time do you think your team needs?
Well, that's a good question, because I do think each team's different. I think, when you have a coaching staff that is together, a coaching staff that these guys know the X's and O's and what we're going to do offensively and defensively and special teams. We're going to have some changes, but ultimately we have a coaching staff that's together. I think it's more so getting the guys in, making sure they're in shape to get them on the field to practice. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, we need 30 practices to be ready. Well, are they 30 practices with guys that are in shape and in football shape? Because the last thing you want to do is, okay, we've got 6 weeks. Well, we want to see how quick we can get them on the field. But we got to make sure from an injury standpoint that we're taking care of them and they're in position to be able to do the things that we're going to ask them to do from a football perspective, because in the past we've had 30 days as far as practices were concerned. And, so I think the the longer time would help, because I think you're going to look at more rest time in between practices, not as much practices as far as the rest time, the mental time, the walkthroughs that we would be able to have during that time frame. Because if you look at the middle to end of July, you're looking probably 6 weeks that you're going to have to get your football team ready to be able to play, which is plenty of time for us, because we'll be able to spread things out from a perspective of on the field and off the field work.
Coach, talk about that NSU Grambling matchup. I know it's going to be special. I know y'all played LSU, and it was a little close. It was close early. Y'all held in there until the end. I know they kind of blew it open, but talk about how special those in-state matchups are.
Man, I tell you, to be able to play Grambling in Shreveport, I don't know if it gets much better than that. And I'm selfish when I say that for several reasons. One is to be able to play in Shreveport, but two, Coach Fobbs. I've had the opportunity to work with Coach Fobbs for 3 years here at Northwestern State, and when you play, it's something special when you play. Teams that are coached by guys like that. I'm sorry, he's an unbelievable guy. He's a friend, and that makes that matchup special. And plus, just like you said, it's in state. There's going to be great competition between us and Grambling, but to be able to play that in Shreveport, and the type of football team you're going to play, one that's going to be well prepared and well coached. But one, at the end of the day, what, we're going to be able to walk to the 50-yard line and hug necks and be able to move on. That's the thing you appreciate about what this game brings, and the opportunities that we miss right now being a part is being able to see people. But that's a matchup that I tell you, it's great for us. I know it's going to be great for Grambling and great for the Shreveport area.
Hey, Coach, I know a big thing for you is getting better every day. Obviously, that's a little tougher to do during these times, but what are some ways you think maybe your team has gotten better while, staying at home and all this?
Yeah, I think it puts a little bit different perspective on things. As we, since March 13th have been apart, you realize, and I have, and I know our players have, one thing that we've learned is how important each other. Just being with each other and having that opportunity to walk in the ready room and set a team meeting and joke around and have fun before the team meeting. That has nothing to do with X's and O's, but that's part of building a team, and our guys miss that. We have a group me thread, and that thing can get going, and you appreciate that, because that's how this team stays together. Second thing I would say, the mental side, it teaches you how to learn from a virtual perspective that sometimes we take for granted. And I think our guys and coaches are going to be better moving forward as we continue to prepare when we are together to be able to do things when we're not always at the field house. And so I think those are two things that the way this football team has grown and has been better, since, we've been apart since March 13th.
Coach, last season you preached about winning games, but performing on all three cylinders. How have y'all been able to combat that early, even though with the pause right now?
Well, that's the thing, as you look back and you reflect back to last season that you talked about. We had to get better in all three phases and be able to finish games, and we weren't able to do that. And I think that's the thing that we were able to establish during the off season. As much as anything that we're going to reflect back, that's going to help us be better moving forward, because we had 7 practices. We've been apart since March 13th. So what are the ways this football team got better with the things that have happened? And I think that's going to go back to the offseason that I talked about, because we were much more involved because the strength staff was not set yet. So I think those are the things that are going to help us, from a perspective of being a better football team. Now, when you talk offensively, you talk defense, and you talk special teams, the biggest thing is going to be consistency. You go back and you look at the mistakes that we made. I think the biggest thing was being consistent. We showed at times when we can do it, but you got to be able to do it for 4 quarters. And so that started in the off season, to be able to finish workouts, for us as coaches to be in there and to be able to see them from the start to the finish, how important every minute, every second is. And that led to the 7 practices that we were able to get in with them.
But you've talked about those 7 practices. Just tell me, what kind of chemistry had you guys built up within those practices?
Well, it wasn't all the way there yet. I'm just going to be honest with you. And we didn't expect it to. You know, whenever we put a plan together, it was not to be the best that we could be through 7 practices. And really, to be honest with you, where were we going to be after 15? We still have some pieces to the puzzle that we're missing. You got to look at 13 guys that were out with injuries that played a significant role, which allowed younger guys to get better through the spring, but it affects your chemistry, to answer your question, once you're on the field. And it does not you can't take away the practices. You can't take those for granted to have everybody out there. They can be on the sidelines, they can be cheering, they can as they were injured, but having them together, we were not able to have that. So we've got some work to do. We weren't there through 7 practices, and we didn't have a plan to be there through 15, because we knew what we were going to do this summer and what we're going to do in fall camp was going to lead to be the best that we can be come UIW on Thursday night.
Coach, obviously there's a lot of time between now and the start of the season, but you have a lot of people talking about potentially playing and only just playing the conference schedule. For you guys, those out-of-conference games, especially playing those FBS teams, it's a stage to get your guys, I guess, to see them how they play against that FBS team. But at the end of the day, playing those FBS teams also affects your program's bottom line. How do you feel about only playing potentially a conference schedule, just a Southland Conference schedule?
Well, I'm gonna look at the positive. If we're playing just a conference schedule, that means we're playing football. And that's a bonus. I say a bonus. That's for right now. With all the unknown, but it's what I think, Rashad, you talked about and asked about the Grambling game. I mean, you talk about our non-conference games, man. Those are important to us, whether they're in-state. LSU last year. We'll have, Grambling coming up. Well, those are very important games for us in a recruiting perspective, in-state rivals that, we don't want to miss out on. But then also the opportunity to play FBS schools that brings exposure to Northwestern State. Look what the LSU game did last year. You couldn't draw that up any better to be able to get exposure for Northwestern State University. And I didn't say Northwestern State football. I said Northwestern State University because, there were so many other activities, so many other things that are involved besides just football, but that brings the university together. And that's what's so awesome about Northwestern State University. That starts at the top with Dr. Chris Maggio, who him and Mr. Greg Burke, and what they've done through this process has been unbelievable. And that's what's awesome here about Northwestern State. And that's what's awesome about those games, to answer your question, that we need to have from an exposure standpoint, and the opportunity for our guys and coaches to be able to play those caliber teams, in-state rivals, and FBS programs.
Coach, despite not being face-to-face or together, would you say that the coronavirus has brought this team even closer despite, not being together?
Yeah, and it's hard to say why, but I think it's as everybody went home, initially, I'll say, because I've got 2 kids of my own, a 17 and a 13, and when they got word that they were going to be sent home, they thought it was spring break and they thought it was summer all thrown together, and but I think after about a week, and there's probably a lot of 18 to 22-year-olds that thought that. But, whenever things got real, I'm just put it to you like that, when things got real with this virus, I don't know how to say it any different, but it got real, and I think it put things in perspective. It put things about relationships, about love, about needing each other, being there for each other, and that, when we think it's a bad time, think about those ones that had to suffer, family members that had to suffer, individuals that had to suffer through this virus. And I think our football team has seen that as we've gone to 5 different states. from California to Texas to Mississippi to Florida and everywhere in between, that we brought our guys back together through Zoom and WebEx to be able to make sure that we're able to see each other and stay together.
Coach, you talked about how special your guys were, your seniors were last season. And I'm looking at the senior book now. I mean, Jay West, Nick Ford, Zirkle, just to name a few. How has the guys stepping up already on the team, and then even recruitment, how are you filling those voids?
Well, I think that, to answer your first question about, the seniors to be, because I think each team looks at, who are the seniors are going to step up and be the leaders. And I don't think you have to necessarily be a senior to be a leader, but these seniors understand that this is their last opportunity. And, they look back at those seniors last year, and they know how tough it was when we walked off that field against Stephen F., because that was their last football game. And that's the memory that I want them to have, because all things do come to an end. And enjoy the time that we're here. Sometimes we take for granted the times that we are together, and because you know what, it is tough, and sometimes it's we go through adversity, and that's how we build character, and that's how we grow, and that's how this football team is growing, and that's how these seniors are going to step up and be the leaders moving forward, understanding that take advantage of every opportunity they have, even now as we go through what we're going through.
Anybody else got anything for Coach?
Awesome, guys. Thank you, man. Hey, I appreciate y'all. Everything special y'all do for Northwestern State. Appreciate y'all being on.
Appreciate you,
Thank you,
Coach.
Coach.
Appreciate you, Coach.
Thank you, buddy.